Hey everybody, welcome to episode 134 of the Masterclass. My name is Cam. I am joined for, well, I guess the 134th time by my co-host, Mr. David Hogue. What's up, my friend?
Well, just happy to be here, happy to podcast. I had a thought when you said episode 134.
Ooh,
that is going to be one of the most extreme tangents. The Bears.
We're off to a great start.
The Bears, the Chicago Bears,
okay,
are 100 years old this year. This is their 100th season.
The upcoming season?
The upcoming season. This fall.
Okay. All right.
So they are putting a 1 in front of all of their jersey numbers.
No, they're not.
Yes. They're going to have 3
Seriously?
Yes. And so Walter Payton would have been number 134.
That is a very, very stupid decision. That's going to look, the all season, their numbers, so
my understanding, and
Mitchell Trubisky is going to be 115?
110, I think.
Oh,
isn't he number 10?
I don't know. I'm just happy I knew his name.
So it's off social media, so take it for what it's worth. But I did see somewhere.
Are you sure this wasn't posted on April Fool's Day?
It might have been.
I cannot see the NFL letting them do that.
Putting 3 digits on their jersey.
Oh, it would look so ludicrous. And I know it would only look ludicrous because it's always only ever been 1 or 2 digits, and there's nothing inherently wrong about 3 digits, but dude, it would look so silly.
So when you said 134, that's what I
mean, it would make it really easy to not be a Bears fan where I live, which is currently kind of hard. So...
Oh, you really think you're going to get sucked into rooting for the Bears?
No, I don't think that, but
it'll just be one more reason.
touting all of my Detroit and Michigan attire around, this blue collar town in Illinois is, it's kind of like having a scarlet letter, shall we say. But if you go ahead and put 3 digits on your jerseys, we're good. Like, oh, you're making fun of me? Doesn't your team have 3 digits? Anyways. That being said, I do really want to go see a game at Soldier Field because holy cow, that place looks awesome.
It is.
It is. Yeah. That was smug. Anyways, we got through 2 verses last time, which is, I guess not really par for the course. That's a little short, but man, what a conversation.
Yes, and I think you nailed it. It looks like it was an April Fool's joke.
Oh, thank God. Oh. That makes me happy. I was really stressed. So, okay, well, let me explain why.
I'm impressed that you called that.
Well, because it's just so ludicrous. Like, in the timing, I mean, obviously it was, 2.5 weeks ago as we're recording, but it's that seems like a good April Fool's joke because it could happen. Like, It would be a bad choice, but that could slide because the Bears and their legacy and the prestige of the organization and, all their history, and why wouldn't they? But it's also just ew at the same time. So let me explain why this offends me so deeply. And it's not even because I'm a Michigan guy and I just don't like the Bears. What people that listen to the show that don't know me personally will not know is that sports aesthetics are very, very important to me. Colors, color scheme, logos, typography, uniform, compilation, all that stuff really matters to me. And it's one of the reasons, outside of the fact that Joey Harrington played at Oregon before he was a Lions quarterback, that Oregon is my second favorite football team in college after Michigan, because holy crap, their jerseys are insane in every way possible. Their shoulder pads used to have fake corrugated steel to make them look tougher and harder, which I just thought, now they have wings because they're ducks. But so anyways, sports aesthetics is a huge thing for me. I will immediately not like a team if their color scheme is bad, if their jersey design is poor, whatever. So when a football team that I already don't like wants to put a 3rd digit on their jerseys, that ship has sailed. You are dead to me forever. So, anyways, not at all important nor related to our topic. I just wanted to explain to you why my body temperature is high right now, because, it's just gross.
Yeah, so just doing a quick little scan of the internet as you were talking, it's basically kind of
Thanks for paying attention. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, I was listening to you because I absolutely agree with what you're saying. I heard what you said.
I know, I'm just being a jerk.
Because I do agree wholeheartedly with you on that. And here's the other thing that I've found is looking back on things from like the 80s that I used to not like about uniforms and things are now some of my favorite things. And one of those is being...
Such as?
So the Milwaukee Brewer emblem, that's the M and the B, that looks like a ball glove.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I was not a big fan of that in the mid-80s.
That's a solid logo.
But like in retrospect, I'm like that. Like I will buy a Milwaukee Brewers hat just to have the old MB ball glove with the baseball.
Yeah, their current setup's garbage. But the old school, like the royal blue with the bright yellow, the MB glove is really nice. You know who else has a really clever logo? The Milwaukee Bucks.
This is true as well, yeah.
The deer antlers that shape the basketball in between them. It's like if you don't know it's there, you won't see it. It's like the arrow in FedEx. In the FedEx logo, if you don't know the basketballs in the antlers, you probably won't see it. But the second you know about it, you're like, oh my gosh, they hit a basketball in the deer antlers. That's genius.
Yes.
2 teams from Milwaukee. Who knew?
Yeah.
I would say it's the other mistake by the lake, but it's way better than Cleveland in every way. Yeah, different state, different lake. It's fine. Milwaukee's actually a really cool town. I've been multiple times, both times for weddings actually, and really kind of neat to walk around and check out all the downtown area, all that stuff. Anyways, we should have a pop culture, sports, and travel podcast, Dave.
There you go.
So many people would listen.
At least you and I would.
Well,
maybe.
We had at one point been searching for a second, well, I guess a third podcast about all this ancillary stuff that we talk about, and it never came to fruition, but much like James Bond, never say never.
Never.
Are we going to talk about James Bond at some point on It's a Trap?
We certainly could.
I think we shall. All right, well, that was an awkward segue. Let's talk about Jesus. Do you want to read?
Sure. Now you got some editing to do.
Nope, that's staying in.
Oh, okay.
The people got to see how the sausage is made, Dave.
Just as long as they cook it, it'll be fine. Okay. So we're on Romans 8:28 through 30 tonight. And we'll see where that takes us. And now we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good. For those who are called according to his purpose, for those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. And those whom he predestined, he also called. And those whom he called, he also justified. And those whom he justified, he also glorified.
This one might make me want to quit podcasting.
It could.
We said last time that this is probably the densest 5 verses we've covered, being the 2 from last episode and the 3 from this one. The amount of theological weight being thrown around here is just like sumo wrestler sized.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like I should be in a sumo diaper while I do this. You're welcome for the visual, folks. Though I'm sure none of you actually know what I look like, so I'm excited to see. Should you tweet at me? No, don't do. I don't want to. Ew. Never mind. That is definitely getting cut. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. Okay. This, to me, without just off the cuff, screams prosperity gospel to me.
Yeah. That's exactly where my brain went.
And I know that can't be true because the prosperity gospel is garbage. So that leads me to believe, rather, that there has to be more to this than surface level interpretation of God wants my life to be good all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what to do with that, really. I guess the first thing would be working together for good would be whose good would be the question. My good or God's good? my purposes are God's purposes.
And then what is your definition of good? I think that's...
It depends on what your definition of is. That was a terrible impersonation. My Bill Clinton's gone down the drain. I'm ashamed of myself. That was just random Southern person. So what is the definition of good? And then whose good is it? And for those of you that I think perhaps might be thinking we're splitting hairs here, I don't think so. Because words matter, their definitions matter, and their subjects or objects, I'm not sure what the correct grammatical term there is, because it's late and I'm tired, they matter, right? So what the word means and who that word is attached to is important. Without that sort of stuff, language is garbage. I'm on a roll tonight, Dave. I don't know what's coming out of my mouth.
So we mentioned the prosperity gospel.
Yes.
I would say that one of the things that we oftentimes when defining something, you can say what it doesn't mean.
Ooh, the anti-definition, yes.
And so when we say good, I think the two things that you have to get, so the prosperity piece, that is not what it is. And then the second thing for me is it doesn't mean you're going to be comfortable. And I think those are, when I think of good, I naturally go towards, oh, things are going to go well for me, prosperity, and I'm not going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to be at ease because God works things for the good.
Right. So it's easy, like as you said, it's easy to think of good as like material good, right? It's all going to work out for those who love God. All things will work together for my comfort, for my bank account, for my, villa in Milan. But it does say, we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good. So it is talking about us, right?
Yeah.
Those who love God, all things work together for good. And so, therefore, if we can say that, yes, it is talking about us, believers, people that have been saved, right, are part of God's family, his kingdom, it is working together for our good. Then the definition for good becomes incredibly important. Mm-hmm. Because if we define good, as you said, as comfort and as material well-being and ease of existence, then we could easily see this verse as Paul saying, yep, you go for it, capitalism. Let that be your savior.
Yeah. The other piece that I think that is in this is that in essence, when we get to heaven, well, those things will be true as well. There's the eternal perspective versus the here and the now. And so, will I, when I get to heaven, have everything I want? Yes. Will I have everything I need? Yes. Will I be at comfort? Will I be made whole? Absolutely. But I'm not a big fan of Christianity from the perspective of it's all in the future. It's not now. And our journey here on this earth matters, much like the words matter. And so I do believe that when it's talking about our good, it's referring to this life as well. It's not this eternal thing that's far off that we're hoping for.
Right. And oftentimes what's good for us isn't necessarily comfortable or enjoyable.
Yep.
Like, it is good to stay in cardiovascular shape. It's not fun to do so, especially if you're like me and you got out of shape.
Yes, I hear you.
Getting back into it is, it's all of the work plus undoing all of the, the laziness. Mm-hmm. And so, there was a number of times growing up where like there was stuff I didn't want to do. And my parents were like, well, it doesn't matter. It's good for you. So you need to do it. I don't care what you want to do. This is the requirement. You need to do it. You will benefit from it in the long run. And of course, as like a 13-year-old, you have no ability to see the long game.
Nope.
Because everything is like right here in front of you and everything's changing and your voice is going like it's all the time and things are hard, right?
Yep.
But think of that in an eternal scale, right? God can see everything at the same time. And so for him to tell us that something is good for us long term is going to be infinitely greater. The difference between what he sees as good long term for us versus what we see as good for us, that difference is going to be infinitely greater than like the difference between a parent and a 13-year-old about what's good for you long term. Why do I have to shower? Because you smell and it's good for you not to smell. I don't want to shower. Like that times infinity is the difference between what God sees as good for us and what we see as good for us. Like, we want to be comfortable because, well, we're lazy and being uncomfortable sucks, right? Yes. God's like, no, you don't get it. The only way you change and grow is when you're uncomfortable, when you're stretched, when you're outside of your comfort zone, when things are difficult, when there are trials and tribulations that cause you to do new things, break old habits, and create new ones. And that's like a super, I think, basic view of it. But like, we have to see what God says is good for us as good for us, and understand that just because it's good for us doesn't mean it's going to be fun, easy, or painless. And I think a lot of times we want it to be fun, easy, and painless. And God's like, yeah, that's not in my Bible. I don't know where you read that. Probably heard it at some church somewhere.
Probably.
And I'm really happy that I did not name names or point fingers there.
So
I filtered, Dave. That's difficult.
It is. So we've talked just that, being parents helps bring some perspective on these sort of things. I had a 14-year-old runaway the other day that I dealt with at work, and
I was like, you don't have a 14-year-old, Dave. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, 14-year-old runaway at work, and it was one of those kinds of things of, he basically said, if you make me go back to the place that I'm staying at now, I'm just going to run away again. So don't take me there. Well, it was a Saturday morning. And I'm just telling him, like, look, you're going back there. There aren't a whole lot of options. And he said, I don't care. This is what I want right now. I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
And it just, like, two things that, like, flashed in my mind was just that idea of, I get that this isn't what you want right now. And even in that, I can't imagine being a 14-year-old that you're in the system and you're getting bounced around and you're having to live in places that really isn't home and you're with other obnoxious teenagers. And it's just a crappy situation to be in. So from that standpoint, but I also had that moment of like going, I have done this job for longer than you have been alive. And I've been dealing with runaways since before you were, existed. And I can tell you from my perspective that it is better for you to go back to the place where you're at and not to continue to run away, because then you get a no run order and there's just all these things that start getting tacked onto you where your freedom, it seems like in the moment your freedom increases, but in the long run your freedom decreases. You really get less and less options as to where you can go and where you can do, till ultimately, if you continue down the path that you're on, you're going to be basically in kid jail. You're going to be locked up in juvenile intake. And just had that moment of like, we are so consumed by the here and now, all of us are. And God's coming from this perspective of, I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. Trust me, I know what I'm doing.
That's really good. That's really good.
And I hope it's, because it did. It just hit me of just like I'm here. I am telling this kid, trust me, I know. I've seen it. I've experienced it. The first runaways that they probably have kids that are older than you now that I dealt with. But it's so difficult for us to trust that perspective. It's difficult for us to trust that somebody may know better than we do. Especially somebody that we're not in a relationship with, especially in somebody that we don't perceive as having my best interest in mind. And so that just added an additional element for me beyond just being the parent of a kid. Cause this young man that I was dealing with, very intelligent, very articulate, it was here and now for him. And he didn't care that I had a broader perspective.
Yeah. That's such a good, Like, I know it happened in real life, but like that's such a good metaphor for what God's saying here in this passage. Because when you're in the thick of it, everything really is right here, right in front of your face, right? Like when you're in that mode of, panic or fear or excitement or whatever, like everything is so visceral, and you really can't think long term because your feelings are so heightened in your senses, right? Like especially for that young man, like choosing to run away from a foster home because that seemed like a better option than where he was, like that's incredibly like heartbreaking that a kid is in that situation. And then for you and then tell him like, no, really, running away is not a good option because in the long run, you're going to have less and less freedom, less options moving forward, to the point where you said he could wind up in juvenile intake, which is like the exact opposite of running away. Like you're literally locked up and detained. And like you think about, if you correlate that with what, God is telling us through the Bible and the gospel and sending Jesus, is like, you can keep running away from me. You have that choice, right? But the more you run away from me towards that freedom that you think you're gaining, ultimately you're going to wind up in my intake, which is hell, which is infinitely worse than any any restrictions we felt along the way. So God's like, I know what you want. I know the desires of your heart. Here is what I'm telling you is good and holy and upright and righteous and worthy of your pursuit. Follow those things, set your mind to things that are above and not the things of the earth. Just trust me. And it all comes down to trust, right? If the person giving us advice or guidance or wisdom is someone we don't trust, we're never going to listen.
No.
And that kid didn't know you from Adam. He saw a police officer. He didn't know that, you are a kind and gentle and wise and caring and loving individual. He just saw a badge, probably. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but like in that moment when things are so visceral and you're getting picked up by a police officer, you're not his friend.
Right.
Even though you're trying desperately to tell this kid, like, listen to me, I have really, really good advice for you right now, right? And it's just really, really interesting to me how it's so easy for us to put our feelings and our reactions before our understanding. It's crazy to me that God would give us something like the Bible that is so rich and so deep and so full of truth and wisdom and guidance for our lives, and us just go, I know it says that, but like this over here looks way more appealing. And it's just like, when you see someone else doing it, you want to be like, what are you doing? But in your own life, the justifications or the little slides here and there make all the sense in the world. And it's like, no, God has said this stuff here is good, this stuff here is bad, and we like to go play in the bad sandbox a lot. And it's the more we talk about this, the more frustrated I get with myself, because I know me, I know my sin, I know my proclivities, I know my leanings, and it's like, I want to do the things that God says aren't good.
Oh, absolutely.
And the things that God says are good, like, I'll get to that later. It's like the spiritual version of like making my bed and doing the dishes. Like, I'll get to it later. I'd rather play video games. No, you moron. Make your bed, do the dishes, mow the lawn, take care of your business, be responsible. Oh, yes, just anyways, I'm rambling at this point, but hopefully my point has somehow been made in all of that.
Yeah. So it also says the second part of verse 28 says, for those who are called according to his purpose. And I think we kind of, I think the working together is somewhat conditional. On the front end, it's those who love God. So there's kind of a conditional piece to this of it's not for everybody. It's certainly for those who love him. And then on the second end of it, it talks about for those who are called according to his purpose. This isn't a nice little verse that you get to kind of claim when it's convenient for you.
Yeah, right.
But there's certainly an element of it should be comforting. It should be promising for those who do pursue him, do desire to be in a relationship, do desire to know him, that there is this promise of good being worked out for us.
Agreed. Man, there's a lot there, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
A lot. Do you want to, we're 28 and a half in. Do you want to keep going or do you want to end it and do 29? Because I feel like if we do 29, we have to do 30.
If we do 29, we have to do 30. And I think we're looking at well over
an hour
another
episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
You cool with just going to the outro then?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. I'll do my best to make a segue.
The show, it's going to end up being 24 minutes by the time it's all said and done. But
no, I mean, because we have the intro, like it. I'd rather have a tight 25-minute show.
I hear you.
Than a rambling hour and 12-minute show.
Sure. I would agree.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. It's just so much there to talk about. I think we're going to call it here, do another short episode just because 29 and 30 they're a whole episode in and of themselves. So, Dave, do you have any closing thoughts or ideas that you want to share, or are we good to send this ship off into the horizon?
I think we're good to send the ship. The only other thing that does even stand out for me is I started to dig into was that, those who are called according to his purpose. I think that called according to his purpose gets played out or fleshed out in 29 and 30. I think there's kind of that idea of, we're going to start talking about God foreknew, he predestined, things like that. And, forget all that. Just the concept of those who are called according to his purpose. I mean, there's a lot just in that right there. And I think that's so where we're at, to not bog down the listener and completely become consumed by, I'm rambling. So to avoid that, I think we need to be done.
I think that's fair. If you guys and gals have made it this far into the episode, I just want to say thank you so much for your time and for your attention and for your willingness to let Dave and I just talk and you listen. Like, that's incredible. What would be super cool is if you check the show notes out. If you're listening on your phone, depending on whatever podcast app you're in, you can swipe around. You'll find the show notes. They're there, I promise. There will be links to the scripture we talked about tonight. And maybe if I'm feeling extra special, some links to really, really, really good sports jerseys just to accentuate the ridiculousness of our opening conversation. But there will be links to Dave's Twitter, to my Twitter, to our collective email, to our Patreon page, to all that good stuff. So if you want to go beyond just being a listener and being a conversation partner, that would be awesome. Like, Dave and I talk together because, we like each other and we're friends and we like to think that we have decent ideas, but we know that there's plenty of other knowledge and perspective out there that we don't have. And so if you want to contribute to the conversation on the show here, you can get us on Twitter or via email if that's your preferred communication method. And we would love to include that in future episodes. So that is out there for you if you want. And thanks to our Patreon supporters for helping make this possible. And any other information, really, you can find at supermegacorp.net. And if not, just yell at me on Twitter. I'm at Cam Brennan. I will help you out as much as I can. And Dave, I think that's it, my friend.
Yeah, we'll catch them all next time.
Indeed. Farewell.
Bye.